Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Warrior Planted podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening into today's episode. It's me, your host, Deborah, and I'm super stoked and excited to be here recording another episode of the podcast. It is the last week of February, and I figured that I would sort of stay on theme with February being the month of love, and just sort of continue talking about relationship. So in the last episode, we talked about why comparison can feel a little bit louder around Valentine's Day. So in today's episode, I really wanted to focus on singlehood and the temptation that often comes with feeling like being single also needs to be some sort of self-improvement project. So I really want to sort of hone in on this idea that being single does not have to be a self-improvement project. Being single is not a problem to fix. It's not a personality trait, and it's not a waiting room. Being single is just being single, right? And I should say that this episode is not anti-relationship. I am in a relationship, and happily so. And it's also not about pretending that you don't desire partnership. I really want to sort of dive into what it looks like to desire love without structuring your entire life around the pursuit of finding love. Because I feel like somewhere along the way, we've sort of been conditioned. We've learned to feel like, if we're single for too long, we should be doing something about it. And I want to be able to question that in today's episode. So stick around, listen in, get comfortable, and I hope you take away something from this episode. So I've noticed that for many people, and I think maybe especially women, being single sort of becomes this kind of like project. It's this project of optimization, of analysis, of working on yourself, of tweaking your routine, your body, your hobbies, your personality, all in service of finding the one. And growth is beautiful, don't get me wrong. Self-awareness is healthy, is necessary. But I think there's a very key difference between evolving because you want to and doing so because you believe partnership is the reward for improvement. There's also this subtle societal narrative that says that if you become healed enough, secure enough, fit enough, rich enough, soft enough, successful enough, whatever, then once you have all of those elements, you'll finally be chosen. And I think it sort of just turns singleness into this sort of performance, And so you begin to start evaluating your life and asking yourself questions like, am I doing enough? Am I putting myself out there enough? Am I too independent? Am I not independent enough? And suddenly, instead of living your life as a single person, you start optimizing, essentially. And I feel like I can speak to this personally because I was single for many, 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 many years. And I did treat that season of my life as sort of a time to work on myself. And looking back, I don't think working on myself was a bad choice. I feel like being in that season forced me to see certain things about myself clearly and forced me to take a step toward going to therapy, and starting therapy and addressing some core inner child wounds and issues and trauma from childhood. And I think that period of my life also forced me to try and do new things and meet new people. And again, this is not all bad, but I think I was doing those things because I was single and because I felt like doing all those things would shape me or turn me into a quote-unquote better person or put me in a situation where I would finally meet the one because I was putting myself out there. So all the self-improvement projects or self-improvement things that I was chasing, I wasn't doing them because I thought they had inherent benefit. I was doing them because I felt like if I was able to just, get healed from therapy, then I'd address my inner child issues and be able to attract someone that was worthwhile, and I'd stop being single. So I don't know if what I'm trying to say is coming across. So I wasn't doing all these things just because they were inherently good things to do, just because meeting new people, going out and living life was an inherently good thing. It was a means to an end for me, and the end was getting into a relationship ultimately. And the exhausting part of all of that for me was like, you just cannot control the timing of it. You can do all these things, but you never know when you're going to meet the one. If it's going to be at some class that you're taking, or it's going to be like a random chance encounter that you did not plan for. And because you cannot control the timing of these things, when you treat singleness like a project, like something to work on, you end up measuring yourself against something that you cannot control, and that's just exhausting to have to do all the time. And this is something that I really also talked about a lot on my podcast, is one of the biggest pressures around being single is this idea of a timeline. There's, as a woman especially, there's this invisible calendar, all the age milestones, the biological clocks that are ticking, and the wedding announcements, the engagement announcements, the pregnancy announcements that we see all over social media, where it feels like other people seem to be working on a sort of prescribed timeline. And when your life doesn't match that timeline, it can definitely make you feel like you're behind. You start to question, what the heck am I doing wrong in this aspect, even when everything else in your life is flourishing, is doing well. You have great friendships, you have great familiar relationships, your career is growing, your business is blossoming, you're getting to travel and experience new things. But once, like, you know, and that relationship, that intimate relationship aspect seems to be a little bit behind, it colors all of the other things about our lives that are going well. But what if we question this and we really determine that romantic timing is not proof of our worth? You know, it doesn't say anything about maturity, desirability, or even readiness, right? We often treat relationships like merit badges, like something to acquire, like a stamp that you get. You're in a relationship, congratulations, you're an adult. As if partnership is the evidence that you've done life correctly, as if romantic partnership is the only thing to strive toward as a symbol of a life well lived or a life worth living. And I think we know this, like, deep down, rationally, when we sit down to think about it. We know that relationships are really truly influenced by timing, by geography, by chance encounters, by compatibility, personal readiness, other people's readiness, and so many different variables that are well and truly outside of our control. And so decentering this idea of a romantic timeline is not the same thing as giving up on wanting love. It's not, once you start to decenter or remove yourself from the idea of romance happening within a certain timeline, it doesn't mean you're giving up on love. I think it just really means that you're refusing to let the pursuit of romantic partnership be the organizing force of your life. And so it means that your 20s, 30s, whatever season of life that you're in, are not pre-marriage eras, if marriage is what you're, striving for, or pre-partner eras. They're not filler years. They're not waiting rooms. They are just your life, where beautiful, meaningful things beyond romantic relationships happen. There's also this fear that if you become too content while single, you sort of lose your edge, that contentment equals complacency. And that if you stop striving to get into a meaningful relationship or partnership, you'll miss your chance, quote unquote. And personally, this is something that I relate to hard. In my singlehood, I had many moments of exhaustion, of just trying and putting myself out there. There were really times where I really just wanted to stop and just not see being single as sort of part of my identity, and it's just what it is, and to remove that notion of singlehood as a critical defining trait of myself. There were times where I just wanted to just be content with my relationship status without feeling like I needed to do something about it. But then I'd get this like overwhelming fear and FOMO that if I stopped going on the apps, if I stopped putting myself out there, what if like there's just what if I'm just one more profile away from meeting the one more swipe away from meeting the one? And yeah, there was just always this voice in my head saying, if you stop, you're never going to find this person. If you don't put yourself out there, how are you going to find someone? But the thing is, contentment and being fine with your relationship status and where you're at in terms of relationship isn't the same as settling. Because as I reflect on that time of my life, if I had just been like content about just, being single, I think I would have been more able to fully inhabit my present life and enjoy my life, as it were, instead of like constantly negotiating with the future and constantly putting things on hold. I think it's also the acknowledgement that you may want partnership, but it's not at the expense of joy. It's not at the expense of living your life and living your life to the fullest extent that you can. And guys, I did this. I used to tell myself that there were certain things that I couldn't do until I had a boyfriend. There were certain places I couldn't go to until I had a boyfriend to bring with me or a partner to go on them with. There were certain experiences that I did not want myself to experience or could not let myself experience as a single person. And looking back, I have so much love for the younger version of myself, but looking back, that was such a weird opinion to hold, because those two things can coexist. You can desire partnership, but not want to like wait until you have a partner to do the things that will bring you joy. You can desire deeply without living your life desperately, essentially. And I think that balance is powerful because there are so many ways in which contentment can show up. It can show up as, planning trips and deciding that you're going to experience certain things by yourself. It can be building deep, meaningful friendships. It can be investing in your community. It can be making financial decisions without, waiting for someday. For me, I think that last point really showed up when I decided that, I'm going to buy a property. I'm going to buy a condo rather than continuing to rent and waiting to get married or whatever before buying a first home with my husband. So I decided I was not going to put such a decision and such a meaningful thing as home ownership on hold just so I could enjoy that with a future partner. There's no point in pushing things down to the future to enjoy with someone else when you can really fully inhabit the joy of certain things by just making them happen in the moment, if that's within your control. So all of that to say is that living life fully right now does not mean that you're closing the door to love. I think it just makes your life richer with or without the presence of romantic love. And I feel like also the quiet gift of singleness, when we stop making it a thing to work on, is the autonomy you realize that you have as a single person. You get to learn about yourself without constant negotiation. You get to take risks, you get to pivot, you get to build a life that is actually yours and that is reflective of what matters most to you, your values, your beliefs, your passions. And you get to do all of that without consideration for someone else and their plans. And I think that's such a freeing and beautiful thing to have access to. But the sad thing is that we downplay all of those wonderful benefits about being single because we're too focused on what's missing. So maybe instead of viewing this a season of singlehood as a gap, as a hole, as something that needs to be filled, maybe we see it as a period of building and getting to live life fully. So what could that look like? I feel like living life fully right now could look like committing to long-term financial goals, moving cities, switching jobs, traveling long-term if that's something you've been wanting to do, nurturing friendships intentionally, building creative projects, prioritizing health in ways that are not driven by aesthetics or looks or looking better to attract the one, and maybe even ticking stuff off of your bucket list, stuff that you've been dreaming of doing for a long time. So I think it's really just about choosing to see your life as it is currently, as legitimate as legit. It's your life. It's not a temporary thing. It's not a passing phase. It's not incomplete. It just is your life. So to sum, in closing, if you're single and you desire partnership, as was the case for me a few years ago, that desire is valid. It was valid for me then. It's valid for you now, if that's the point of life in which you're in. But my hope with this episode is to be able to communicate that your singleness does not need to be a full-time improvement plan. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to constantly prove that you're worthy of love. You don't need to treat your life like it's a draft version, and then once you find your partner or whatever, that's like the full completed version. No. You're allowed to want love while grieving the weight sometimes that comes with having to wait for love. But at the same time, you can still be living expansively in the present moment, chasing your goals, building your finances, investing in meaningful platonic friendships, trying out new things. So being single without making it a project is about releasing the pressure to arrive. It's also about like trusting that your life as it is, as it stands, is already whole and complete and full. And so, that if love enters it, it would be a beautiful, welcomed addition, but it doesn't necessarily complete your life. And that mindset shift, I feel like, is a game changer. So friends, that is all I have for today's podcast episode. I hope that if you are like me, a few years back, navigating singlehood and really questioning everything and seeing everybody else living the life that you desire and wondering where you've gone wrong and when it will be your turn, I promise you that it will be your turn, but you can just kind of live your life, do your thing, and just find joy in things that are meaningful rather than centering and focusing your life right now as it is on the pursuit of a relationship. I've been there, I've done that, and I can with my chest tell you that the entire process and mindset is exhausting. And if I could give my younger self some advice, it would be to just sort of chill the F out and just focus on living. But yeah, that's all I have to share for today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in or maybe watching on YouTube. If you're keen to do that, thank you. Earlier, I started uploading video episodes to YouTube, so please make sure you check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Let's grow on YouTube as well. I will have all the details for that listed in the show notes. But that is all that I have to share for today. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk to y'all next month in another episode. But until then, take care and goodbye.